as we are going to be speaking with David Abdulla very shortly. But he did actually, the Movement for Social Justice, they were calling out the Dr. Keith Rowley-led government on its handling of the Petrotrin OWTU issue. And its political leader, David Abdulla, said the government was slow to act. It also dismissed earlier statements by academics and others in the business class. Liran Brummel tells us more.
Almost a week after the OWTU's 90-day strike was averted, the Movement for Social Justice has weighed in on the issue. Calling the entire situation a boil that has been popped, David Abdulla said the pus is now oozing. The pus, he said, was the various groups that have taken sides on the issue. He said the comments have all been against the union.
That the business class, the employer class, took an almost unified position on this question. And that position was to attack the union, to describe the union in all kinds of terms about being wild and unpatriotic and unreasonable, and all kinds of adjectives like that were used to describe the union.
Nobody, he said, came to the assistance of the union. Mr. Abdulla, an economist, called out a colleague on his stance that the interim wage increase of 5% would lead to the devaluation of the TT dollar.
But he has not spoken about capital flight by the wealthy in this society, because ordinary workers don't engage in capital flight. They don't have US dollar accounts, whether here in Trinidad and Tobago or outside of Trinidad and Tobago. But he wouldn't speak about the hundreds of millions of US dollars that are being exported out of Trinidad and Tobago or are being hoarded by sections of the wealthy in this society. So the workers are fair game for attack, but the wealthy are left unscathed.
He also trained his guns on former Senator Dana Mahabe Wyatt and the Energy Chamber's President Dr. Thackeray Driver, saying they wanted to break down the union. And the media did not escape. He said fact-checking is needed. To the UNC, he said they were hypocritical for criticizing the government's action, noting there was political spite directed at a number of unions during their time in office. And to government, he said they waited too long to act.
From day one it came into office, they were aware that the 2011-14 negotiations were outstanding. And in spite of various initiatives and meetings and information passed on at all levels of the government, they did nothing until the strike notice was served. So the PNM government itself has demonstrated its slowness to act. It moves like molasses.
Mr. Abdulla said his party stands with the poor and the working class. Liran Brummel, C News.
So there you had, you heard, that is, what the political leader of the MSJ had to say with respect to the Petrotrin OWTU issue, where he said that the government was actually slow to act in settling the wage negotiations with Petrotrin, among other things, with capital flight by the wealthy and so forth. But we do actually have Mr. Abdulla on the line. So I'd like to say good morning to you, Mr. David Abdulla. Welcome to GMTT.
Good morning, Rhea, and to all of your viewers.
Thank you so much for taking the time for speaking with us here this morning. Now, you mentioned some about the government being slow to act, and they waited until the last minute with the 5% wage negotiation. Part of that, and with the Petrotrin management, was basically because they said there was just no money to be had, which is why the 000 is, talk was on. Eventually, yes, the 5% was given. There is also the talk that this is going to affect the country, and I want you to talk about this a little bit more and how it is or isn't going to affect the economy of the country, that 5% that needs to be paid out now.
Yes, and of course, the 5% is an interim settlement in that there is still a process of negotiations ongoing between Petrotrin and the union. So the final settlement for 2011 to 14 period would be above 5%. Now, the money for the increase in salaries and wages, because obviously once salaries and wages increase, there's an immediate increase in the salary bill. That money is going to come from within Petrotrin's own resources. And yes, Petrotrin has been operating at a loss for the last year or two. And that is because largely because of the very significant debt service that Petrotrin has, which has affected its cash flow and so on, which debt service arose out of loans that were taken by a previous board under Malcolm Jones when he was chairman of the board for the upgrade of the refinery, which upgrade projects, of course, took many, many more years to be completed than forecast and cost many, many more hundreds of millions of US dollars than was originally budgeted. So, but notwithstanding that, Petrotrin actually can afford to pay once it increases its oil production. The union is very confident that it can increase oil production. In fact, it did engage in such a project when the Minister of Energy was carried in chief examination way back in 2010, early 2011. And the union, the Ministry of Energy and the company sat down and came up with ideas and projects to increase production, and production actually went up by several thousand barrels of oil a day within a short period of time. So efficiencies can be arrived at, increases in output and productivity can be arrived at, which would enable Petrotrin not only to pay the increased recurrent salary bill increase, but also pay the back pay, because the union has said that the back pay will not be paid right away, but would be paid on the basis of increased output. And the union and the company are going to sit down and work out what those targets are. So this is a very novel arrangement where employers, economists, all kinds of people have been saying our productivity is too low in this country. But the union now is saying we are prepared to work with talk on productivity. We're going to sit down with the management and work out production and productivity increases, which will enable the paying of back pay, which is now what they're owed to the workers. This is completely new and changes the whole industrial relations paradigm in the country.
Now, you also mentioned that, they failed to address the concerns about capital flight by the wealthy, the US dollars being exported by the wealthy, and basically the workers are fair game in a situation such as this. Can you elaborate?
Yes, I mean, you asked a question earlier about what effect would this have on the economy. Really and truly, the settlement can have only a positive impact on the economy once Petrotrin becomes more successful and production of oil increases. That will benefit the country and enable more foreign exchange to be earned. So because you see, Petrotrin is an integrated oil company. It is both a refiner and a producer of oil. But the refinery is configured to refine 170,000 barrels of oil a day. In fact, it is refining about that, 170,000 barrels of oil a day. But Petrotrin only produces from within its own field about 40-something thousand barrels of oil a day, maybe say 45,000 barrels of oil a day. The result of that is that Petrotrin has to buy, with foreign exchange, of course, the difference between 170 and 45, about 125,000 barrels of oil a day. Now, the more oil Petrotrin produces itself, the less oil it has to acquire from abroad, and therefore there will be a saving of foreign exchange in that regard. And so the increased oil production can only be down to the benefit of Petrotrin. Now, that was saying, talk about the strike would have caused us to devalue. The fact of the matter that the strike settlement actually enabled Petrotrin to continue to export refined products and therefore continue to earn foreign exchange for the country. So that has been beneficial.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for just explaining that just a little bit more to us here on GMTT. And we do hope that what you have said, does in fact take effect, especially with the Petrotrin workers working back to pay the wage increase. And plus, we've also got other negotiations going on, and we're hoping for the best for that as well. So thank you, Mr. Abdulla, the political leader of the MSJ, for speaking with us here on GMTT.